go to Little Rock? That was at another couple different teams, you know how they just. And all of a sudden they pop something like 4 years ago. They don't even know. They already know. Yeah, he was around. Yeah, part of that. But
I'd like to call our meeting to order. It's August 24th, 2022 at 6 o'clock. It's our special meeting of the Board of Directors. And I'd like to do the Pledge of Allegiance and then also do a moment of silence following the pledge. For our I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. All right, Lori, would you take roll?
Colin Burnell,
here,
Matthew Phipps,
here,
Stacy Selner,
Here.
Matthew Spalding,
here,
Carrie Trask,
here,
Tony Vostelica,
here.
and Kathy Willis.
Here.
Okay, and our first item is the report of the superintendent, and under that is our personnel report. We did have 3 of those. One came out, and then we had an addendum and a second one as well. So do we have a motion and a second to approve of those? Okay, let's take, do I have a motion and a second to approve the original personnel report?
Make a motion. A second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? Okay, and then do I have a motion and second to approve the addendum number 1?
Make a motion. One second.
Okay, any discussion about the second or the addendum number 1? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, and then our addendum number 2, do I have a first and a second?
I'll make it first.
Do I have a second to approve?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, Colin.
Given just basically following how I normally vote on these, I did not receive this till 3:39 today, so I will not be voting in favor. Yeah, I understand the significance and the need, but I do like to be able to review these in advance before voting on them. So.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay, and then our unfinished business is our strategic plan update. We'll bring Brett Norrell up to just give us an update of where we're at with our strategic plan. Thanks, Brett.
Thanks. Okay, so first, thanks to the board for completing the survey that was sent out. I know that was a quick turnaround, but it got us started in the process. So it's actually a really great start as we, really we think of strategic planning as a large funnel, right? And the board survey is that first input into that funnel. The next step is really critical and important as well. So this is going to be a survey that will go out to the educators, to the staff, and to the leadership, both the leadership here at the administrative office and the principals at each of the schools. And so the survey is really similar, pretty much the exact same questions that are received by the board, except we won't require a name. We'll ask for general category of the individual, but we won't ask for any specific names or work location because we don't want to have any way to figure out who it is or isn't, right? So that'll be confidential in that aspect. And what we'll do is we'll get it out either tomorrow. Jim and I are finalizing the intro email. This will come from Jim. It'll have an intro email, which I drafted for Jim, as well as a link to the data that we've talked about before. So we'll have some background information on the school district, funding, enrollment, some of the discipline numbers, those types of numbers will be in there and presented. I've seen a draft of them that Jim is putting together. They look fantastic. And it really does lay out some of that background, particularly related to the funding. And I know discipline and funding are the ones I saw. Oh, and the report card performance as well. But there's others that we're putting in there. So he'll have that linked. I don't know what tool you use, if it's Google Docs or something, people will be able to click on that and view it. So I'll give Jim a link to that survey, just like the link that you as the board members had. What we'll do as a timeline is I'm looking to give them enough time, knowing that school's just starting, right? We don't want to get them with a survey and not give them enough time to complete that. So we're targeting September 11th. It's a Sunday to have those those back. I'll come to the 13th meeting with just a kind of a preliminary numbers and overview, but I'll come to then the September, I think it's 27th meeting with more details, because I need a little time to read, because this is a lot more responses than the 7 we had here at the board. So it'll give us time to start looking at the data, looking at the information, the responses, and be able to come back here with a summary of those as well. So that's a lot. Quickly, any questions? Yes.
Just a clarification, is it gonna go out to every single employee of the district?
The employees, yes. So the categories we're looking again at are the educators, the leadership, both here and at the schools, and then the staff within those schools. So whether they are a supportive role, they're in the office, they're facilities, anyone who's not a contracted employee, so an actual employee of the school district.
Or custodians?
Yep, everybody will get that survey.
And then my last question.
Yes.
New employees as well?
Yeah, as long as, yeah, it'll go to Jim's distribution list that he has. Yeah. Yeah, we want input, as much input as possible, again, as we try to synthesize this information down into the plan. Yes, sir.
Is that going to be a mandatory response, or what do we anticipate the response rate to be if it goes out to everybody?
The responses aren't, somebody has to click on it and actively go in. The questions will be mandatory, just like they were for you, except we're drop the name question off. But it's up to the individuals to be engaged and go ahead and complete that survey. We can't, because we don't know who completes it, we can't make people take it.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like if it goes out to the whole district, what kind of response would you expect?
When you go, what are we talking, like it's around 500-ish, right, total. I would expect,
for teachers who are around the range of 410 and plus the additional support staff, I'm not sure where we're at total numbers. Angela?
650, 700.
I would expect between 50 and 75%. Yeah, yes.
With the anonymity of not having to have any information in there, is there something within your survey program that links to make sure that it's not done more than once, or it's just clicked on it and got done, and if you were to go back in and say you already filled this out, or how does that work? Like, otherwise you get somebody with the same opinion that puts it
Over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Let me look at that. I have to see, the one we use for this group, since it was only 7 people, we use Google Forms.
Sure.
I have to see if Google Forms allows that or not. If not, I could switch to it. I could look for a different platform.
That's great.
So we have the surveys that we're going to get. Actually, I'll just wait for this to catch up. I'll take a pause. Cool. All right. Thanks, Jessica. So we have the surveys that are going to be going out. Is there going to be, I'm looking at the timeline that we have here, and maybe I'm just not seeing it, one-on-one dialogue, or any dialogue beyond a survey from the board? Even if it's in a group, but just.
The sessions come in step 6. If you have this, where it talks about hold the sessions in November. So now, if we'd like to have some individual, absolutely, I'll make myself available at any point in this process, if we want to have one-on-one.
So when it says, on the strategic planning framework, that is to the discussion of the topics and so on, not necessarily the plan that's being put forward at that point, correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
The draft plan comes in that December meeting,
Okay,
and it won't get finalized then until your January. So it gives us that time in between to update it, tweak it, take that feedback from the draft and finalize it at that point.
okay.
But again, if any board member wants to talk to me one-on-one, I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
And welcome it if you want to have that conversation.
Sure. I'll be reaching out to you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'd just be curious as to what kinds of questions you're asking people to respond to in this way.
Same questions you saw.
Same questions.
The only one additional question added is at the bottom. I'm going to ask, I have a list of, probably 24-ish or so categories and ask them to prioritize 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest. And it's everything from academics to sports to bringing in arts and things from outside into the classroom, all those, a whole broad list of topics that can be asked, to ask people to prioritize 1 to 5. And then we'll have some, obviously be able to average those scores and look at those categories. As I've mentioned I think I mentioned this in one of our other discussions, there was a lot of consistency in the answers amongst the board, which I typically do see.
And then I don't know, did the email that after we met the first time, and the email about, I just wanted to give Carrie props about that it was a good idea to have that data be sent out. And so it's been created.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I gather that. That's what
Yeah. so that was a great idea, and
Yeah, so it'll be right in the body of the email. We'll have a link. We'll say, here's some information that you can review prior to completing the survey. And there'll be a link to some slides that Jim's put together.
okay. Any other?
I should say, you're putting together, right?
We're working together on it.
I saw a draft when I met with Jim this week to go over the slide or the intro.
Happy to help.
All right, any other questions about our strategic planning process? Just encourage our educators and staff to complete that, so.
Yeah, I think it'll be important when it goes out to send a couple reminders. Again, I know with the first week of school, we want to give them, they're going to have a lot going on, but then at some point send a reminder or two as we get nearer to that deadline. And I'll work with Jim on those as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you.
For the update.
I have a quick question.
Oh.
So Brett, you said, or I'm just looking at, the attachment there.
I'm not sure
Number 2, summarize the Board of Education survey results. Is that just kind of what you described here earlier, or are we going to get into that more?
Yeah, so part of the reason I didn't want to bring the results and just put them out there, because I want them right now to be part of all the data that I'm collecting.
Okay.
And I think it's important that when we send that survey out to the educator, staff, leaders, that they are just completely blank slate except for the data that's going out there.
Sure.
So I have all those results, and I think we can share those after we have that survey, because I'll bring it all together.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, one last question. So if you're having, 700, reviews, how are you going to, or what matrix are you going to use to synthesize that information?
So what I do, my first swipe, and I did even with these 7, is I read through every answer and I begin to look for themes, right? And the trends that come together to say, hey, how do we group? Because again, I look at each answer separate, right? And then look at what's contained in those. Here, I'll give you.
I understand
Yeah.
for the board, so you're going to read all. Thank you.
Yep,
I just
yep.
want to make sure.
And then I try to categorize them, right? To be what's the theme of the answer? And then bring those themes into the trends and the trends into, as we're trying to build towards those pillars.
Okay, thank you.
We'd
Just a
love to
lot
have
of-
700.
What's that?
So we'd love to have 700 responses.
As much as possible going into that is important, right? It's getting the feedback of all involved.
Okay, wonderful. Well, again, thank you, and look forward to another update.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Brad.
Okay, so we are down to new business. These are items brought forward from the 8/16 curriculum committee meeting. The first item is the first read of policy 2240, controversial issues in the classroom. And this was looked at over a couple different meetings. And we had a first and a second to move forward the suggestions that came out of the curriculum committee. So I would open it to now discussion regarding those changes. And Kathy, as chair of that committee, if you want to talk about anything about process, or if you'd like to start us off in any way.
You're on.
You're on
Kathy.
mute, Kathy.
Yep, sorry. Saw myself, thought that was it. Yeah, thanks, Stacy. This was reviewed very conscientiously for many months. I mean, essentially since May, I think we've talked about it at every single meeting. We disseminated it down to the point where we would answer a couple questions at a time. And then the final question to be answered was really whether or not we would have teachers vote, or I'm sorry, not vote, but give their opinions on controversial subjects within the classroom. And that was the final decision maker. And it was voted 2-1 that we would just say no opinions, please. So I was one who voted against that. I'm kind of questioned the fact that if, we've hired all of our professional teachers, and that we should allow them to be able to voice their opinions when they deem it appropriate and necessary. But the others on the committee do not feel that that was the way it should go. So anyway, we are bringing it to the full board, and you finally made those decisions. I guess I don't know what else to talk about. It's just such a funky policy, right? When you're talking about controversial issues. So I think one of the things to make, though, it is about controversial issues, things that would generally be controversial within the public eye, not just anything we decide to make up as controversial. I think we've had some emails to that effect too. Well, what do you count as controversial? That is actually stated in the policy. So we should really make that clear.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. Colin.
So, and I'm just looking for some clarification here. So as I read this, it states that we have, that we do believe that controversial issues do have a legitimate place in our schools. And then it goes on to say that the controversial, the board will permit the introduction of proper educational use of controversial issues, provided that their use is in the instructional program. It's related to the instructional goals of the course of study and level of maturity of the student, and it does not tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. So, and then there's another one, encourages open-mindedness and is conducted in the spirit of scholarly inquiry. Controversial issues related to the program may be initiated by the students themselves, provided that they are presented in the ordinary course of classroom instruction, and it is not disruption to the educational setting. So as I'm reading that, I don't know where it states that opinions can't be
That's sort of
given.
Colin.
Where do I
Right at
need
the
to see
very
this?
It's specifically stated toward the end of the policy.
Okay, can somebody,
I don't have it with me,
In the
so I'm sorry, I
discussion
can't tell you
of
exactly where it is.
Third from the
In the
bottom.
classroom.
a teacher may express a personal opinion.
May not.
Well, it says may not.
You're
It
looking at
says on-
this right now.
I'm seeing right here, it says a teacher may express a personal opinion. That
You
goes
look at
on,
the wrong
but
That's been
You must be
eliminated.
looking
though.
at the.
so how am I getting this one versus the
Well,
one that
because
we're supposed to be
there's
voting
multiple.
on?
Well,
Where's
They have all
the-
these listed there.
Where's the,
You have
Yeah,
a starting place.
Do I have the old one up?
You got
I
the,
think you're looking at the old policy, Colin, not the new one.
All right, so I clicked on the wrong one. My apologies. All right.
Yeah. So the revised policy does not allow for the opinion of a professional to be given. But it is important that we have controversial issues in the classroom addressed too, though. Like third grade, they work at how to navigate through different issues, and students are taught how to look things up and how to make the decisions for themselves. That's just one example that's actually part of their curriculum. There's another part too. You'll also see that if controversial subjects want to be discussed within a school or a classroom setting, rather than having the principal give permission, we decided as a committee that role would be given to our superintendent. We felt as though that was, again, more universal and did not allow for that autonomy. And that way, too, we know what's happening in our district.
Yep. I'm not a lawyer, but I do edit stuff I write, and words that are weasel words or words or phrases that are vague, ambiguous, or not exactly precise. So in the draft, item B, that's identified as item B, reads, it does not tend to indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. I think not tend is just weaselly. I mean, it's just like, well, what does that mean? I think it should just read, does not indoctrinate or persuade students to a particular point of view. And that's just an editorial change, and it makes it really clear. I mean, I'm against indoctrination, and I don't think that teachers have a role in trying to sway people's, teachers, I think in this case, have to moderate the discussion. But I also agree with not expressing personal opinions. Teachers expressing personal opinions. I mean, when I was teaching, boy, I tried my damnedest to make sure that the students didn't know whether I was a Democrat or a Republican, which made the whole endeavor, notch up a bit. If you're talking about partisan stuff or political stuff or whatever, it's just like, come on, you don't have the time when there's all sorts of important information. And teachers shouldn't invite students to disrespect their opinions, So I think teachers need to protect themselves by not being opinionated. I mean, certainly if it's based on knowledge, they certainly can be arbiters of that. But opinions, yeah. The other thing is on D. D says does not cause a substantial disruption in the school environment. Boy, I don't know what the hell caused substantial disruption. How do you measure substantial in this case? And I think, does not cause disruption in the school environment. I mean, you could argue with that, I guess, and say, well, some disruption, is kind of creative chaos, maybe. But I think that we have enough problems, trying to maintain an orderly and conducive learning environment to why should we parse disruption? Well, that's not quite substantial enough. Just go on disrupting.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we editorially clean up the copy a little bit. That B should read, does not indoctrinate or persuade, or does not aim to indoctrinate or persuade students of a particular point of view.
And then D.
And D is does not disrupt the school environment.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend B and D. Any discussion? Yes, Colin.
I do agree with Dr. Trust. Those are very good changes. And I will, on a personal note, I had you as a professor, and I think you did a very good job of maintaining that in your classroom. So, but the yeah, I think that those are very good changes, and you know, does not tend to. It is a very good point. Does sound weaselly.
Does AIM sound a lot better though? I mean,
Well, I agreed more so with the first when you were first stating it, just to
It does
not tend to, just the does not indoctrinate.
Does not indoctrinate.
Yeah.
It's D that,
both of them.
Yeah, so does not a substantial. So a substantial, yeah, that's a quantitative
Yeah.
amount. So let's remove the quantitative and just stick to the A or B. You know what I mean?
I've said that. Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, for B, don't have AIM or TEN, just say does not indoctrinate or persuade.
It's there's a motion. So the motion
That's
is
what
That's the
the
discussion we
Yeah,
can discuss.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then D would be does not cause.
Does not
disruption.
disrupt.
Does not disrupt school.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's kind of the Ernest Hemingway theory of writing policy, I guess. Eliminate all superfluous words. Get to the point.
so does not cause a disruption in the school environment. So we're just
Okay,
getting
we
rid of
can do that.
substantial.
Yeah, we could do that.
So any other discussion regarding just the amendments to the, or the corrections to the document before we go back to the original?
I think that seems reasonable. I mean, does anyone see any downside to that?
Fine, very reasonable, makes sense to me.
I don't know. I don't know what the lawyers think. They always like to do creative ambiguity, I think. But
Okay, well, all in favor of the changes to the document, regarding, B and D, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so, back to the document with B and D changed. Any, further discussion regarding this, policy and the other changes that were made?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'd just like to point out to everyone that this policy only relates, when you look at how they define controversial issues, it specifically says political, social, economic, and religious topics. So I just wanted to clarify for everyone, teachers and staff, can certainly have an opinion. I don't think anyone here is saying you can't have an opinion on these issues. I think it's really just, is the classroom time and that setting an appropriate time to share that. So I just wanted to make that distinction that, I've seen some comments on social media that, we're not allowing teachers to have an opinion. That's simply not true. Teachers can have an opinion. We just want the focus in the classroom to be on,
I think you're talking about anything besides controversial.
right. Yeah, and I also want to clarify that this isn't we're not saying you can't have an opinion on these issues, just as it relates to the classroom.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, I just have a couple things. I like the wording that was chose by the majority of the committee, just because it's clean. And it gives a very clear distinction to all stakeholders on what to do, as well as when something does come up by an outside source or somebody wants to present something that it would come to, doesn't mean that it can't be, but that the district administrator would look over that. The other thing I wanted to add was Kathy, in one of the ad hoc committee meetings, asked the teachers that were involved to comment about this policy. And there was some really great discussion that came from that. One of the things that I believe our district has prided itself in is really making relationships with kids. And I think we all agree that that's important, and we can all name our favorite teachers and people that have been important to us, or staff people that have been important to us. And I think that can still happen. And I forget who said it in the last meeting, but it really challenges all staff to find a way to help that student find the answer. So it's not necessarily that you have to give your opinion in order to make that relationship. And you're not turning that person away for having the idea that they have, but you're saying, well, where could you get that more information about that? Or if, I often hear, well, maybe they don't have somebody at home to talk to about that. Well, where is a safe place that they have to talk about that? It could be our guidance counselor. Could it be? So, students are going to engage and build those relationships. And I think that even though this is in there as protections for everyone, I think that can still happen. And I still think that that's important. And I want everyone to know that is important and that those relationships can still happen. The other thing is, a lot of times when we kind of talk about lawyers, policies are written in a way that are, I know in my own, the ethical code, or you go to an ethics training, it's like they tell you the worst of the worst. And so the other thing that I truly believe is that, the majority of the people in our district are doing a bang up job, making relationships with people, addressing different stuff that comes in a very elegant manner. And I think that's great. And again, this goes back to how are we going to, again, protect these for everybody. So, and everyone has a clear idea of how to do that. And get back to really what's super important is using the student's own opinion to help them learn and grow and to critically think. And I think all of that can be achieved with this policy as it has, even with the changes that are made. So that's all I have to say.
I think it's a really good policy because it starts off by saying controversial issues are they're everywhere, and they should be definitely in the schools, and they definitely should be, but they should also be. And then it goes on to say, put to work for educational purposes, so that you do what you just said. You're really teaching critical reasoning, because if students are exchanging ideas, et cetera, they may change their minds, or they may see other aspects to what they thought they knew but didn't know. And I think it's great, because I think there's no attempt here to suppress or mute anything. It's just like, but things have a place.
Colin?
I just wanted to say that I agree with most of all the sentiments that have been stated so far. I especially like the portion of this policy that talks about the parental rights that are in the policy. I really do appreciate the sentiment of making sure that the parental rights are kept. So,
any other further discussion about the policy? So this is the first read, which really means that it needs to be on the agenda for 2 meetings. So it'll be on the agenda again for a final vote. So you'll see it again if there are any other thoughts that come up from that. Okay. All right. Okay. The next item we have that also.
We just reviewed it. We don't vote on it at this point.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. It needs in any policy change needs to be on the books on the agenda for 2 meetings. Yeah. Okay. So the next item that we have that came from the curriculum committee as well was the long and hard work of the ad hoc committee to bring forth a code of conduct. So that was a first and a second out of the committee. One of the things that the committee did talk about was that because this isn't a formal policy, this doesn't really need a formal vote. But it was the committee's wish, and I think a good idea, so that everybody knew that there was support or not support for the code of conduct coming from the board level as well. So that document is there. And Kathy, if you'd like to speak to that at all, because I will open it up for discussion.
Okay, thanks again, Stacy. Yeah, as you said, it's a long time in coming. I mean, really, it's been a good 8 months. Was working through the process, and a lot of effort from a lot of people, especially during the summer, where people are giving up their time every single week to try to put this together. So it really was a privilege to like have this group. I can't say that enough, and how much I think of all those people. And yeah, so we worked on it. It's a level system. As you could read through, it's levels 1 through 4. Essentially, level 1 is when behaviors take place that are handled within a classroom. Level 2 is when a class or a teacher needs to seek some outside help. Maybe it's a repetitive behavior. Maybe it's just a little bit more advanced of a behavior that they need some help from outside the classroom. And then level 3 and 4, they start getting into issues like there'll be referrals, or level 4 becomes much more of a really serious nature, right? We're talking about mostly like laws and so forth like that outside of our school district, and be able to handle it within a school. I don't know what else to tell you about it. I think we've got it pretty well covered. It is a live document. So if throughout the school year or at any time, if any of you see any changes that need to be made, or schools do, we're able to do that. And because again, it's not an actual formal policy, it should be able to be done so a little quicker than it would be if it were policy. And we're pretty excited to have one. It's the first time we've had a code of conduct that we're aware of. Most school districts have them, and we saw that we didn't. So we finally have it. So we're hoping that we get everyone in the school board committed to doing this fine work, and we feel as though we have the people who can do it. So we're excited about the potential, and I guess that's it. So thank you to everybody who's worked on this, and thank you to the board for hopefully giving your commitment toward it also.
Any, yeah.
Just want to make a comment. Want to say thank you to all the people that worked on it. And I don't want that to be in vain. I want that to be living, moving on forward through this school year. So I will publicly say now, our superintendent needs to charge that. You have to have the charge to be able to implement that at every single, administrative level, and then into the teachers as well, so that they have the support of that document. It has to be enacted at this point now. It can't just sit on a laptop or sit in cyberspace. It has to be implemented. So, I will charge you to make that, happen for all the hard work that's been done, the collaboration of the people that put it together. Now we need to have it implemented into our schools as a district-wide code of conduct. And we've had problems with that in the past, obviously. So I'm asking you to follow through with that now, please, for our community.
Yeah, I agree.
Around here.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with it. I think it and I'd like to second Matt's thank you to the committee and all the people on it that worked on this, and that, I haven't been on the board that long, but I've been on the board long enough to know that there are a lot of things that have not been clarified. I mean, there's just a lot of smoke and fog on a lot of the business that we've done. And I think that this is a tremendously clarifying document that, calls things what they are, defines them clearly, and assigns responsibilities at different levels to different officers. So there's no no, I'm not touching that, et cetera, et cetera. But I do think that we have to put our stamp on this and say, yeah, this is what the board is we're authorizing this. But I think it's really a major achievement.
Colin.
Great documents. Nice job to the behavioral committee, especially for all their hard work on it. So thank you. I know you guys put a lot of guys and girls, put a lot of time into the document, and it definitely shows. The thing that I would have a question about is how is this going to be put out to the public? Is this going to be given to every single student, every single teacher, or is this going to be here you go, this is what we're doing type of a thing?
Our instructional team has met with the principals, and the principals are rolling this out, including that follow-up training, so that all have an understanding of what's now in place and what the expectations are for that, and what training might be necessary, and what additional follow-up. For example, as Kathy indicated with level 2, a significant part there where a teacher needs help. How is that school going to respond to that help? So that could be a little unique in each school, but that is a need, a registered need now, that we recognize that schools have to have a plan for responding to that.
And then I'd have one more question, and that is, throughout my time on the board, I've heard many times of where the teachers had made suggestions to have it followed up with, and it wasn't, or there was a disagreement from teacher to administration in how those things were followed. And as Dr. Trask was saying here about the language on some things, sometimes we get, well, it's more or less this or more. Is there a way for the to them say a disagreement on a tier 1, 2, 3 or any of that? Is there any ability for that? Maybe not in this document or policy, but in another policy that somebody could, like they feel that the level 1 is not good enough, it needs to be a level 2, or say level 2 is too harsh, it needs to be a level 1. Is there some way to work into there?
You got to respond to that.
Well, yeah, first of all, the committee has discussed reconvening to review feedback that they've received for necessary adjustments. So we would be looking to collect, feedback in terms of how this is implemented, whether or not we do a survey, to be able to kind of track and to obtain this feedback. But the committee will be reconvening.
I believe September 15th is the
September
first.
15th? Okay.
The 12th.
12th. Thank you.
Thanks, Kathy.
And Kathy, I know you had your hand up. I'll come back around to you.
Okay.
Just a couple of things I wanted just to address that. I think that the way that they rolled this out is pretty direct. So I don't think there would be too much confusion as to the way Colin was talking. I understand what he's saying. But the way that they did, they put in so much work. This is pretty well written out exactly what needs to be done and where you would land within those levels. So I like the way that it was written. Kudos to Cassie and everybody that put it together. I watched throughout the months that they put this work in, and so it's great. I do want to say in second what Matthew said to Jim, and also say that this piece of paper is only as good as consistency and follow through. So it's not just collecting dust somewhere on a shelf, or it's not just sitting in a file somewhere. All the teachers, everybody has to be on board, and they have to follow through with it as well too. So that's my position on that.
Okay, Kathy.
All right. I just wanted to address some of the questions and some of the things that you guys said. As you said, this is just a piece of paper right now. I think it's a really nice piece of paper that we worked hard on putting together, but it is just words. And so it's only good when we put it into action. And we need to put it into action because what does it supports the academics. So I mean that's like our two foremost goals are to improve our academics and handle behavior. So it goes hand in hand. So I think the majority of people will hopefully embrace it. And part of how we will deal with it is, again, we are meeting September 12th to see some feedback from the first couple of weeks of school. But the idea is to periodically review during the school year. There is something in the works too called the 5500 Club that Pam and Jason are talking about putting together, which will be teams of people within the schools themselves to look at data and what's happening with the behavior plan. And again, it's about periodic review. Just because we put together the document one time doesn't mean it's done. It's living and it needs to be continuously addressed. So, yeah, thank you.
I'll say to Colin's point, so I think it's very objectively based right now, but cooperatively, the ad hoc committee can strive to even look at it even closer, to have more objective, consequences or outcomes instead of subjective. I mean, that's really what you're kind of debating about the wiggle room. And that's something that I think is a life of the document. So it should improve as we move forward if we're implementing it, because we should find out some of the issues or the good things about it, and we can try to continue to be as objective as possible instead of trying to be more subjective on our outcomes of disciplinary positions or infractions.
Kathy,
Sorry.
Kathy, do you want to respond? And then I have a question for you.
Yeah, sorry. And I forgot, I did want to address the rollout though. One of the things that we discussed many, many times that we're hoping the schools will all do, we highly recommend it, is that each of the students, along with parents, would sign a document stating that they have actually read this to help them, again, be held accountable for the code of conduct.
Right.
So we're hoping that that happens. Of course, that's beyond the ad hoc committee's kind of realm of abilities, but that's what we're recommending and hoping that happens.
Kathy, I think that's a great idea, and I think as a board, we should encourage all parents in our community to review this with their children.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have one question first for Kathy. Kathy, I know that there were several models that the committee looked at. And I remember reading through like 3 or 4 of them, and then there was one where the bulk of this came from.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, did we get any feedback from that school about how they felt the code of conduct was working in their particular school?
Oh, well, the school that you're referring to is actually Middleton Cross Plains. And their superintendent spoke to us fairly early on. Her name is Dana Montague. And part of why we talked to them was because of the effectiveness that they've had with their behavior program. And ours, we did model a lot of it after them. And but it is our own also at the same time. And just to clarify, I think I did the last meeting too. We are not we didn't copy them, and we have their permission. We actually have their actual permission to use their document. So, I mean, it has changed for our own benefit. But yeah, it was Middleton Cross Plains. So, they've done a lot of work, and they saw a lot of improvement after they put their plan together. So we're hoping ours will be much the same. I think, again, more than anything, it's about follow through throughout the year.
Anybody else?
And years. Multiple years.
Sorry, I'm gonna have to call out first, and then Carrie.
That's okay. I just wanted to make.
Yeah, I'm just 2 points. I'd prefer to be called Carrie rather than Dr. Trent. And I would like to say that, the thing is the implementation of this. Of course, the superintendent is really the key guy. And I think that it can't be just put on the shelf, because it should be part of the evaluation of the administrators that are responsible for, order and learning environment in their buildings. So that I mean, we had, where I worked, we had yearly evaluations, and if something was going to be evaluated, you'd want to do well at that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that. But we don't get to evaluate principals and vice principals and people like that, but the superintendent certainly does. And I would urge that this be part of the evaluation process.
Great suggestion.
Yes.
I just want to make one last point. I want to highlight that we are going to be celebrating another school year starting next week. And I would think this would want to be a part of every single teacher's classroom management plan. moving forward, So that's obviously what we, are trying to achieve is a strong classroom management so that our students are successful in their classes. So I just want to highlight that, we're starting a new year and this is a great time to move forward and find the successes that we need to have as a community.
Put it into action.
This is real progress. The beginning.
Anything, okay, Kathy?
Yeah, just one quick comment about Jim. I want to say I have no doubt that Jim is fully committed to this. Jim actually, since he came to us in the district, has attended almost every meeting possible in the ad hoc meeting. So, thank you to Jim for showing us how important it is too from his perspective. And I have no doubt he'll carry through with it because, face it, we'll be on him if he doesn't, right, Jim?
That's right.
Hopefully, and there might be more discussion, but I just wanted to say one last thing. Another thing that came out of that meeting that I remember somebody saying, but actually I remember it was from a teacher too that gave some feedback about why discipline was so important to her in this school and who was responsible for it. And I think that, as a community, I think we're all responsible for it. And, it's not just Jim, it's not just our administrators, it's not just our teachers. One of the things the teachers said was the parents, that's very important too. So, again, it's going to be a unified front if we're going to get this together. And I think that's what I'm remembering the superintendent from Cross Plains now too. So that's a part of it, that we're all going to be behind this, and so I'm happy to throw my support behind it as well.
Yep.
And if there's no other discussion, I would love to take a vote on this because it's been a long time coming. Okay, all in favor of adopting the new Manitowoc Public School District Code of Conduct, all say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, and then we, thanks, Kathy. We have some just other business, some updates. Some information about WASB has some fall regional meetings and workshops October 4th in Kiel. And then also the State Education Convention, January 18th through the 20th. And Lori, I don't know if you want to say anything about that at all.
Yeah, if you would like to attend either the fall regional meeting, there's a workshop from I think you probably would have gotten some information about that maybe a month ago already. If you plan on attending, just let me know and I will get you registered. They have a workshop if you want to attend like from 4 to 6 and then a dinner at 6:30 with a presentation and things after that. It's at Mill Home in Kiel. So just let me know so I can get you registered. And then the State Education Convention in January, it's January 18th through the 20th. If you plan on attending, please let me know. I know it sounds far away, but please let me know. I started calling to reserve rooms and there are hotels that are booked already.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
And it just opened Friday.
I will be attending, Lori.
Okay, thank you.
yeah, me
Kathy.
too.
Okay.
Put me down. I went last year. I went last year and so did Kathy. And I thought it was great. I just learned all sorts of things I needed to learn, and met people that were really, really good people to meet. And I'd encourage you to think about that if you can.
Yeah, I highly recommend it too, guys. And I still have a bunch of the literature from last year. So if anyone would like to see what kind of things they offer, I'd be happy to loan it out to you.
I would like to take a look at that, Kathy.
Is that Matt Spalding?
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
Actually, Kathy, I'd like to review that as well, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was Colin.
Yeah. I sound like everybody else.
Okay, upcoming future meeting dates. Is there anything left in the month of August? I don't think so. Nothing on the books.
The
Yes, ma'am.
31st, we're looking to have a
31st.
finance and budget and buildings and grounds combined meeting.
Okay, and that's what time?
I think we're looking at 5 p.m.
Okay.
And I'm just waiting for confirmation, just if you haven't responded, just to confirm that all can make that.
Okay.
What day did we say that was, Angela? I'm sorry.
Wednesday, the
31st.
31st.
Okay, and it went from 4 to 5 now?
5 to 6:30, we're gonna bump it back an
Or
hour.
5 o'clock? Okay.
We'll have presentations from Baird Financial and to other additional vendors for
Okay.
facilities.
So,
Okay.
before our next meeting, we'll have the school board advisory meeting as well. 6th of September. I know it's not this month, but it will be. for the next
What's
meeting.
the school board advisory?
That's that ad hoc.
Oh, do you want to say that?
Yeah, there is also a school forest advisory meeting that is taking place on Tuesday the 6th as well. And then we also have before our September meeting, before we meet next in general, we'll also have a finance and budget meeting on the 7th as well, correct?
Correct.
With an executive meeting following.
Right.
So,
And then personnel is planning on meeting. I'm gonna meet with Mary and we're gonna pick a time and to do that as well, so.
And then when is the school forest advisory meeting?
School forest advisory meeting is Tuesday the 6th, 4:10 to 5:10.
Here?
It's a virtual is what it appeared to be. So
And Colin's our representative.
You don't get to
for
go to the forest.
that.
it'd be awesome to go to the
Yeah,
forest,
wouldn't
but
I have a quick question. Angela, is that meeting time for every meeting going forward or just for next Wednesday?
Just for next Wednesday, since it was a combined time, we were gonna do 5 o'clock.
Okay.
I'm always open to evaluating the start time of the other meeting if that we're trying to move it a little earlier. We can revisit it if needed.
Sounds good. Okay, so we are going to move into closed session and we do need
Stacy,
to
can I
do,
make
yes,
a point?
yes.
I would like to try to bring some consistency to the buildings and grounds times of the meetings.
Okay,
Can we talk about, try like once a month or something here?
Sure.
So I think that's kind of like to set a date for that if we have.
okay.
No?
We certainly, the three of us have talked about that.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to say is
We
I'd
could do
like some more consistency with our buildings and
Yeah.
grounds committee meetings.
Okay, do you guys want to set something up now or after the meeting?
After
Just
the
let us know.
meeting,
Okay.
yeah.
I would only highlight that that's extremely important because it helps everybody in planning, getting schedules out even for making arrangements for filming. And I mean, the more we know up front, the easier it is for all parties to get on board and to plan accordingly, making good use of time. So appreciate that suggestion.
Okay. Anything else about future meeting dates?
Angela, could you just move that meeting invite? I can't move it on my calendar.
Oh, yes, I can,
Yes.
and I'll add the buildings and grounds, I'll add everyone together.
Thank you.
So we'll get that agenda posted.
We do have.
And Colin?
so
But it's joint.
10 minutes from the building and grounds. That was just, we had that issue. Did you maybe want to touch on that? There was only 10 minutes that was reported,
I mean, we can,
just as a reminder, to the public, I guess you would say.
yeah, so, and I guess it's been brought to our attention that, the meeting for buildings and grounds was, cut at 10 minutes. I did talk to the superintendent about our technology, issues. And so, I believe we have, going forward, we're gonna make sure that we always have an IT professional for those of us that aren't tech savvy, to make sure that we always have a proper reporting for that. So moving forward,
I would also suggest that Lori was very instrumental in finding a solution to that issue too. Lori, would you like to comment? Because that was very nice follow-up on your part.
Well, your conversation, we just found out that somebody that was present for the building and grounds meeting did record the meeting, so we're working with IT to get that information, to have it uploaded to their website.
Excellent.
excellent. That's wonderful. Thanks, Lori. And
That's-
whoever recorded, thank you.
I
Yes.
know this isn't on the agenda, but, Joanne is here and I think she's leaving pretty soon and certainly Joyce, both were great people to work with and, I'll miss them both, especially Joanne's cynical sense of humor. I'd like the board to say, well done and good luck.
Well done, Joe.
Well done. Have a good one.
Yeah. Thank you, Joanne. You'll be missed, Grandma.
Thank you, Carrie. That was sweet. Okay, so, we need to do a roll call vote to move into closed session. And so, I would like to make a motion and sorry.
Do you want to read the?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, sorry. Please forget that. The Board of Education will vote to convene in closed session for the purpose of considering the following matter. Considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the government body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This meeting is authorized pursuant to section 19.85 subsection 1C of Wisconsin state statutes. And this requires a motion and a second to go into closed session.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Okay. And then a roll call vote by the clerk.
Colin Brunel.
Aye.
Matthew Phipps.
I,
Stacy Selner.
Aye.
Matthew Spalding.
Aye.
Carrie Trask.
Aye.
Tony Vosdelica.
Aye.
And Kathy Willis.
Aye.
Okay, so we'll take a short recess just to clear the room, and then we will move on for our closed session.